Lieutenant Robert O Goodman. After being captured and freed in Lebanon 3 years ago, the Navy flyer is studying for a new assignment. This comes from Ebony Magazine, May 1987. Lieutenant Robert O Goodman. It has been 3.5 years since Navy Lieutenant Robert O. Goodman, Jr. was shot down, captured, and locked up for 30 days in connection with a bombing raid over Lebanon. That was, he says, one of the most difficult times in his life, but all of that is behind him now. Today, the aerial navigator and bombardier is spending most of his time in a classroom studying at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, where he lives with his wife Terry and their two daughters Tina and Morgan, 5. One was 11, one was 5. Goodman, who has recovered from injuries suffered after ejecting from the disabled plane, enrolled in the school in April 1985 as a full-time student seeking a postgraduate degree in space system operations. He is scheduled to receive that degree in September, after which he'll have to wait for an assignment that will allow him to put that knowledge to work. I'll have to go through a navigation process with Navy personnel who will determine my next tour of duty, says Goodman, who grew up in Portsmouth, NH, that would be New Hampshire, I guess. I'm hoping to get back to the East Coast, hopefully during the negotiation process. The Navy will take that into consideration and then figure out what will be done after all concerned. While at the schools, students, such as the 30-year-old officer, aren't required to perform any additional Navy duties, and that he says is good because the amount of studying he has to do leaves little time for anything else. He takes 17 credit hours per quarter at a concentrating on subjects such as satellite design, project management, software engineering, and space science. When he does find a little leisure time, the lieutenant who now lives in base houses spends as much time as possible working on his car, a 1978 Corvette that he bought 5 months ago. Lieutenant Goodman became America's first prisoner of war since Vietnam when he was captured on December 4th, 1983. He remained in captivity for a month until his release was negotiated and secured by the Reverend Jesse Jackson. During the time he was locked up, the Navy aviator recalls the toughest part was the uncertainty he experienced for 24 hours a day, every day. He was first put into a cell in a Syrian police compound in downtown Damascus for 4 days. When he was moved to a small bedroom in the same complex, he was repeatedly interrogated, but he gave his questionnaires what he calls vague answers, a technique he learned during training at a survival evasion resistance escape school. And although he admits that he was very scared and apprehensive throughout his captivity, he maintained that he did the things that were right to do. With all that behind him now, Goodman is moving forth with his career, and despite the horror, pain, and brush with death he experienced in Lebanon, he says he wouldn't balk at the chance to be part of another airstrike. It's a good feeling when someone expresses their confidence in one and have you involved in such an event, says Goodman. I'm not a warmonger or anything like that, but if the situation presented itself and I was called upon, I wouldn't hesitate to do the same thing all over again. And that concludes this reading from Lieutenant Goodman. Evidently, he's a war hero from the year 1983 when he was captured, December 4th, 1983. I was a wee baby back then, and Jesse Jackson helped free him, helped get him out. I possibly will do a little follow-up on him to see if he's even still alive. I have no idea, but here's someone that was captured. Now, it's kind of wild, right? I mean, I just read this article where they were trying to bomb Syria back then in Lebanon. I mean, that was in 1983, folks. That was a long time ago. And this man was captured. So it's just amazing how persistent, I guess I could say, how persistent the United States is on getting what they necessarily need. Now, we know Syria and Damascus in particular is a heap of rubble. Just like it says in the Bible, it would be. Jesus predicted it. He said, when Damascus turns to a heap of rubble, that'll, the end times is near. Damascus is a heap of rubble. It was a big city, beautiful city at one time, but because of the ISIS people, because of the bombings between the rebels and the ISIS and all of these other different organizations that have been trying to, Assad also, and then you've got the United States trying to do it as well. Between all of those, the Shiites and all of those other people that I have no idea about, the country is turned into rubble. So that's something that I'm not celebrating at all. I don't celebrate any type of things like that. But what I do like is the fact that this guy was keeping it real. It seemed to me in the article that he's just a guy that was caught up in something that, he said he'd have to do it again, he would. I mean, he's just trying to do his job. He's doing what he could do best, which is fly. And, that's something that he chose to do. And he's trying to go to another level. At that point, I would just shoot for a management position, and I probably wouldn't even, but good for him. And that was a great read. So there's no reason for me to go on any further. But here is a good man, Lieutenant Robert O. Goodman. And he was a good man. Peace.